Hey, I'm Troy from StartOrganic, and the plant nurseries are closed right now, and it's a great time to start your garden. So I want to teach you how to start an indoor plant nursery using things that you can find around the house. So follow me along in this series, and I want to show you just what you need to get started and how to do it yourself. So the first step is you need a bunch of containers, and if you don't have actual 4-inch pots like you get at the store or whatever leftover. These are all leftovers from my last garden plantings and stuff. You can also, I found these in my cupboard. These are just little Batman Dixie cups, and these work great, but you do need to poke a hole, at least a hole, in the bottom of these. Okay? Just to make sure you get a little bit of drainage. Sometimes I go ahead and poke 3 holes in each to make sure that the water will drain from the bottom. Remember, you can kill your little planties by drowning them the same that you can if they don't get any water at all. So you're going to prep your trays. This is what I had laying around. These are just like little plant trays, but these won't work for holding water. So what I did is I just cut up some plastic and I lined the base so that when I water through and the water goes through the holes in my starter cup, I won't just be spilling all over my house because I'm going to put these inside. So I'm also using these little 6-packs. This is something I had left over too. This is just going to help me save some space. So I'm going to make trays of these leftover 6-packs so I get more cells, more plants in a single tray. This is going to be great for my bell peppers where I need a lot of bell pepper plants, or if I want to do multi-basil plants or something. I have a really big garden, so I need to really maximize the space. For you at home, you might only need to start a few little starter cups on a plate to catch the water. Just make sure you poke holes in those cups. So the first step is to plastic out your tray, get whatever cups you're going to use, make sure they have holes in them, and then fill them with some sort of soil. It doesn't matter that much what type of seed start mix you use. I happen to have a bag of this around. I mean, I'm StartOrganic, so I have some materials around the house. But this is the ideal. This is a lightweight mix blended specifically to start seeds. I also had a bag of this raised bed potting mix around. I'm going to use that, but I'm also going to show you guys how to find something from just your native soil. And if you don't have little Dixie cups too, I have seen people start little trays in egg cartons. This stuff works the same. So take your little starter cup and just fill it up with either one of these. I'll just do the raised bed mix because I'm running short on it and I want to make sure I get to use it all. Actually, I'll do about half of that and half of this. I'm doing a half and half because this raised bed mixture has a little bit more ability to capture moisture. It'll hold on to more moisture, which means I won't have to water these as much. So I put the moisture capturing part on the bottom and this really soft, lightweight mix on the top. And ta-da, I have a whole tray. These trays hold 18 plants. That's a lot. I'm not going to do 18 tomato plants. I'm going to do cucumbers and peppers, zucchini and squash, and tomatoes all in one tray. And I'll probably do bell peppers and maybe basil over here. We'll find out when we get into the seed section. So that's what you need to get started. You prep your trays, you get your little cups, making sure they have holes in them, fill them up with whatever you guys can to start the seeds. On to the next part. All right, so if you don't have the seed starting mix and you're looking to do this inside nursery and you want to get your seed started, you can use soil that's just around your house. I picked a patch that's as soft as I could find around here. Notice that, once I get in, if you get in really close over here, this is an area, look, I got grubs and all sorts of stuff. You don't want that stuff in there. But if you just kind of can sift through this and break it up a little bit, this soil isn't bad. It's going to be great for holding a lot of moisture, but it will compact really fast as you water through it. So notice this is a good test for compaction. If I take a little clump of this stuff and I squeeze it in my hand really tight, notice how it just becomes one clod of soil. You can still break it up, and that's not terrible. Plant roots will grow through that, but you want to add something that softens it. That's why they sell that seed starting mix. It's a lot of moss and perlite and things that don't compact or don't, you know, consolidate like this. So we can use some of this, but because I want to use household items, I'm gonna actually just take little bits of cardboard. I sort of shredded this stuff up. I'm actually gonna shred them even more because it's seed start mix. You want things really small, right? So I'm gonna cut these things up into little tiny strips, and I'm just gonna like kind of pre-blend this little area that I'm gonna use. All right, and remember from the previous video, I said I found these little Batman Dixie cups, right? And I poked my holes in the bottom of them. So what I'm gonna do is I have a nice little mixture there. I could do a little bit more cardboard probably. And what I'm doing is, cardboard's great because it holds moisture and it's really lightweight. It creates little air pockets. I'm gonna cut them pretty small. And to fill this little Batman cup, I'm gonna make sure I get a big clump of the cardboard. I'm gonna kind of mix all this stuff together. And then I want to try to get the softest, fluffiest bits I can, and I'm going to fill this up most of the way. Get a little more little pieces of cardboard that I put in there, softest stuff I can. And there's my little Batman Dixie cup. That'll work to start seeds. I'm going to add this little Batman cup to my tray of starts here and keep going until my whole tray is finished up. I do have a bunch of these cups, so I'm going to use what I can of the cups that I already had. But just as a home example, I'll do these Batman cups too, so you guys can see that it really doesn't matter what your container looks like. So one important thing to note here, see this little pincher bug and stuff? We just took a little roly-poly or pill bug out of here too. When you go grab soil, from outside, you might have a lot of stuff living inside of there. The very first time you soak through this with water, you'll start to see some things crawl out of there. Be ready and capture them and get rid of them. You don't want that anywhere near your little seedlings because they'll just decimate the whole population. So be aware that if you do have to gather soil from your outside, that you're going to have to do a little spot check for insect pests. So now that we've filled up our little containers, I have found in my place, in my house, my best south-facing window that gives me some natural light throughout the day. You'll see that the shadow line starts about here, and I get a lot of sun through here. As that sun tracks across the sky over into the west, I'll actually get more light on this one. To balance the light, if you have an area that's get a lot of sun and then another area that gets almost none, we're just gonna rotate these trays and make sure that they all get around the same amount of light. I'm gonna cheat a little bit because I can and I have the stuff to do it. I am gonna be putting a light setup up here with these ballast lights, and I'm gonna artificially add more light than the sun can give, because these seedlings, they can handle 18 hours of sun in their earliest days. And so I'm gonna basically add 6, 7 more hours, maybe 8 more hours that I would normally get during the day with these lights. So I'll put them on a timer and I'll show you how that goes in just a little bit. If you don't have this stuff, don't worry about it. The natural sunlight will do it as long as you have a really good south-facing window. What's important to note is if you are going to use lighting, you need to have full spectrum bulbs. This simulates the light of the sun. It has the full light spectrum in it. You cannot use fluorescent bulbs or your regular like 60-watt light bulbs, or even those, especially those fluorescent low wattage bulbs that are power saving. Okay, so I'll show you how the light setup goes in just a little bit, but what we want to focus on here is we've got our trays in our south-facing window. The next step is to seed. So follow me into that section. All right, so we're back with the seeding part. This is my favorite part. I dug through the seed bank. All right, I had a whole bunch of seeds, many years old. A bunch of them are years old. Some of them are from last year. I have a good confidence, though, that they're going to germinate because I've kept them in a cool, dry place. They were in the garage, in a cupboard, so they didn't have any moisture, and they weren't exposed to sunlight, so they should all be fine to plant. We decided to go ahead and do, as the indoors for seeds, we're going to do tomatoes, peppers, basil, cucumbers, and a bunch of different kinds of zucchini and squash. Basically, to help you decide what is the best things to plant indoors, and before you do a transplant, think of anything that produces large amounts of fruit above ground, right? So like tomatoes that are above ground, there's going to be pounds of tomatoes on there, pounds of peppers on there, lots of zucchini and squash, cucumbers. These are things, I mean, other than basil is one that you can start inside as well. You could also start this direct seed outside, but you want to avoid doing things like carrots, beets, radishes, your root vegetables. Those things are not going to work as well in these little containers because they have a tap root. The root itself turns into the vegetable. And from my experience, trying to transplant a root vegetable, it's really easy to damage the taproot when you go out there and transplant. So you want to stick to things that are growing above ground and producing a lot of fruit. The next step here is once you've picked a type of tomato, let's say, okay, you've got these little packs. There's all sorts of different seed packs you can see here. These are different companies, all different things. They usually give you a pretty good amount of information on each pack. This particular one is Rainbows, and it's an heirloom variety of tomato. What you want to pay close attention to is the back of the pack, right? This will tell you, sometimes it'll tell you when to transplant or when to plant them. When you're sowing the seeds indoors, it is March, so this is indoors. Days to germinate, 7 to 14 days. So we can expect to see these up within 2 weeks after we plant them inside of here. Transplanting them April, June. We'll be transplanting these probably mid-April. They do grow to 4 to 6 feet tall, and they approximately 80 days from when you transplant, not when you seed, when you transplant them into the garden. That's how many days until they're going to harvest. So one thing that you really need to pay close attention to here, I don't know if you'll be able to read this, zoom way in. Sow seeds 1/4 inch deep, and it says 1 inch apart. We're gonna do for all of these, because these are older seeds and stuff, we're gonna plant with some redundancy, right? So in each of these containers, I'm gonna actually do 3 of these plants because I want to grow a bunch of heirloom tomatoes. So I'm gonna do 3 plants of these, but in each container, I'm gonna put 2 or 3 seeds. So that's redundancy for each container, right? So if one of the little seeds doesn't come up, I still have another one. And I've got 3 separate plants that I can plant. Keep in mind, each one of these plants, it says to plant these 3 feet apart. Usually I do 2.5 feet for tomatoes. So these plants, when planted in a garden, are gonna be, this is 4 square feet, 4 square feet, 4 square feet. You need 8 square feet of garden space. That's a good amount in a raised bed. Like a 1 4x4 raised bed is going to be just these 3 or 4 tomato plants. So keep that in mind when you start your indoor seeds, that a couple of seeds for big plants goes a long way. All right, I'm going to start with this heirloom tomato because that's the one we were talking about. We don't need a whole lot of seeds. Keep in mind, I am going to just plant 3 separate plants of these. I'm going to put 2 seeds in each, and they go 1/4 inch deep. So I need 6 seeds total. This is cool. These are really multicolored seeds, which is cool. So what I'm going to do when I plant, just so I get a uniformity to it, is I'm going to put 2 red ones, 2 green ones, and 2 of these lighter color ones, so that I'm not mixing a red and green, because when I go to choose a variety, I'm going to have to thin these, right? So I'm going to put 2 seeds in each. It's likely that both seeds will come up and start growing. When I transplant it outside, after I transplant it, a good week after it's been outside, and I know both of them are going to survive, I'm going to have to choose one to keep. So when I do that, I want to make sure that I have 1 green one, 1 red one, and 1 white one. I don't know what these are going to grow out of this pack. This pack is like, shows a bunch of different colors, so we'll have to see. So one thing you want to remember too, seeds germinate with moisture. So I've poured these seeds into my hand. There's moisture on my hand. So I don't like to put seeds back in the pack, especially if I plan on planting the rest of this pack later. So I'm going to go ahead and plant all the seeds that I dumped out into my hand. So you might want to kind of pre-count them, or be aware when you go to dump them into your hand that the moisture of your hand itself can germinate the seeds. So you don't want to be, because I want to save these, right? This year I don't have the option. I didn't go to the nursery to buy these. I had these already. So I want to save the rest, especially if I really like them, I can plant them again. Okay? So I'm going to take 2 of these little red seeds, and I'm just going to Just gently push them down into the soil here. I've just gone 1/4 inch, and I'm going to lightly cover things. Notice I didn't press down the soils, especially when I filled these containers. These are really soft and fluffy still. So you don't want to go compacting the soils in here, just like you don't want to compact the soils in your garden. Okay, I'm going to take 2 green seeds. I'll take this one here and this one here, or even 2 or 3, because I remember I'm going to go ahead and plant all of these seeds that I put into my hand. So I'm going to take this little pinch of seeds. I'm going to just nestle them kind of down in there, about 1/4 inch down. You can look at them there. I don't know if you can see those. And then just lightly cover the top, and that is it. Then I'm going to take 2 or 3 of these lighter colored seeds, and I'm going to plant these 3 white ones here. I'm going to put these 3 in our last container and just nestle them down in there about 1/4 inch down and just lightly cover. 1/4 inch is not very deep. I like to use things that are on my body to show people how deep it is. 1/4 inch is like half of a fingernail. Don't judge me by my dirty fingernails. In fact, I think dirty fingernails are sexy. Okay, so half of a fingernail, a full fingernail is about 1/2 inch. The line on your thumb or the line on your first finger, you know, like this line, it's different for everybody, but it is pretty close. This line to the tip of your finger is about 1 inch. If you look, it's going to be pretty close to 1 inch. That's a little like easy hand guide on how deep seeds should go. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and plant all of these up with the different things. I'm going to put a little piece of tape, and we'll come back to this when they're all planted. Okay, one more example for seeding for you guys. This one's just a little bit different, so I want to make sure you guys get a chance to see different seeds, different depths and stuff. I'm going to do this tricolor zucchini just because it seems like a cool variety. So these seeds are a little bit bigger. The seed pack says planting depth 1 inch. Okay, I am going to put 2 seeds in each of these, and I really only want 2 of these plants, so I'm going to do these 2 right here. You can pre-poke a hole. You know, you can go in there and go ahead and poke down to that first line in your finger, right? Remember that first line from here to here is roughly 1 inch. It doesn't have to be exact. Why are we concerned about the depth? Really, we're concerned because the deeper a seed is in the ground or in a container, the different temperature it is. If it's really deep in the ground, especially if you're direct seeding outside and you go way too deep, if I went 2 inches or 3 inches, my full finger deep, it's going to stay way colder down at that depth, and it might not reach the temperature it needs to germinate. So that's why we're really paying close attention to seed depth from these seed packs. So I only need 4 seeds. See if I can just dump out 4 seeds here. That one doesn't look great, so I'm going to do those because that one's kind of broken. See how I grabbed a broken seed out of there? So I'll get 4 good looking. Oh, that's my whole pack. Okay, well that's all I got left in that pack, so I'll use those. And I'm going to go 2 seeds, 1 inch down here, right down there. And then this one, 2 seeds, 1 inch down in there, and just lightly cover things up. And that really is it. These broken seeds or whatever, don't use those. There's probably not a good chance of them germinating. Or if you are going to use them, have that be the 3rd seed. Okay, so maybe we'll do that and I'll try to follow up later with it. I'll put this broken seed also down in there and this one and see, hey, if we get 3, we'll definitely know that that one worked. If we get 2, then we know it won't. Okay, so I'm going to go through and seed all the rest of these. It's actually really cool. This will be worthwhile. So we can just go and then I'll grab the other can. And I'm ready to do the rest. How about that? Okay. Okay, so now that we've seeded all the varieties we're going to grow this season, at least the ones that we're going to transplant later, it's time for the first watering. This is pretty important. The first watering, a lot of times if you look at this seed start mix, it tends to repel water. So you can kind of mist the top. And watch this. If I miss the top surface of this, you can actually sit and you can watch how long it takes for that water to seep down in it takes a long time for it to want to actually break the surface of that garden, or the surface of your little seed pot there. So I can miss the surface of these, but the first round, you need to make sure you thoroughly soak that mixture. You're going to see a big difference here. Watch this. You see a big difference between the seed start mix and the soil that we pulled out of the ground. If I miss this soil that I pulled out of the ground, notice it doesn't pool up at all. It's draining right through it, which is good. You want drainage, but it's going to retain that moisture for a long time. So you might actually get some like mold and stuff building up. So you're going to see a difference in the watering timing between your seed start mix stuff, if you happen to have a bag of that, versus the soil that you pulled out of the ground. One other thing worth noting as I water here is I'm cheating, right? I'm cheating with this light setup. I went ahead and got these. I already had this stuff, so I figured why not? It'll kind of boost the growth rate of these plants. I have these full spectrum bulbs. I have this little ballast set up right here. It is in a south-facing window. I'm getting lots of sunlight, so for the time being, that light will be off, but this little timer down here is now set for every evening around 7 p.m. It's going to turn on. So as the sun sets, the ballast turns on. It's going to go from 7 to midnight. So I'm going to get 5 more hours of sunlight, right? Using these full spectrum bulbs, I'm simulating sunlight, so I get 5 more hours of sun on these plants, which means they're going to grow up that much faster. So it's just kind of a cool way. If you happen to have this stuff, great. If you don't have it, no big deal. I think the Home Depot and places like that are still open, but you can go out and get these full spectrum bulbs and stuff. Not all that expensive, and a nice way to start your little in-home nursery. So I'm going to go through and water the rest of these plants, but that's about it for the little starter home nursery first-timers out there, or if the nurseries are closed and this is the only place you can do it, then there's no better way to start your garden, because you'll be well connected to your young seedlings and you'll get a chance to watch them grow up until they're about, this tall or so, and hopefully we'll just be able to follow this up with another video and show you how to transplant them out into the garden. Oh, hey, all right, so now that you guys are starting your indoor nursery, it's a really good time to think about building your garden, because you're going to transplant all these young little seedlings out to your garden. So think about the right way to build a garden. We are launching an online course out soon, and it details everything you need to know about starting your home garden. So look for that, and you can join our newsletter. This is at StartOrganic.org. You can go on there and sign up for a newsletter over there, or just look for the links through the bottom of this video or somewhere on Facebook or Instagram, Start Organic.